What's going on, everyone? Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live here on a Thursday. There is no game today for the Blazers. They are in between last night's loss to the Memphis Grizzlies and tomorrow's matchup against the Charlotte Hornets, but we're not even going to preview tomorrow's game. This team is obviously in a state of turmoil. We discussed it at length last night on the post-game show, so if you haven't watched it, I think that's a really good listen. We discussed a couple draft prospects, discussed some potential trade ideas, discussed our thoughts on just the absolute mess that the Blazers are in as a team, as an organization, and hopefully they can figure something out because coming off of losing 10 of 11 games, they have another decently tough matchup tomorrow against the Charlotte Hornets. So best of luck to them, but today we're going to do picks against the spread, only 4 games for that, and then we'll discuss what it could look like if the Blazers decide to retool the season, maybe have Dame rest, get some surgery, make some trades to kind of gain different assets, draft picks and whatnot, shed some salary, that sort of thing. We're going to look at what that might look like if the Blazers took that route. Eric, you have a couple things prepared for that?
Yes.
Cool. So Eric has some things prepared to that. We will break out the trade machine. All right, we got a good slide for that. We'll break that out and kind of walk through some things, walk through some ideas of ours. But before that, we got to do picks against the spread. As always, we're going to start things off with that. Let's take a quick look at the standings. Jackson's still number 1. He cannot be knocked off. He went 5-5. And that was the best record on Monday. It was a struggle of a Monday, and didn't I say something like I felt like the picks were obvious on Monday?
You sure did.
And you said that means that we're all going to struggle or something like that. You were right. We all pretty much struggled. Me and Jackson went 5-5. I won an island. I think that's my first island win of the year, maybe the second. Always good to win an island. Trevin, Zach, and Chat all were 4-6. Reese and Eric were 3-7. Then Krish, who didn't show up and didn't send me his picks, Definitive 1 filled in for him. And for I think like 8 out of 10 games, we had Definitive 1 pick, and Krish went 2-8. So anytime you throw somebody without that experience into the fire, normally it doesn't go too well. So Krish going 2-8 there. Double downs look brutal. Only 2 people with a positive double down record. It's just been a weird season for picks against the spread. I like the comeback I've been making though. I'm coming for you, Jackson. You gotta watch out, but still very, very early in things. It's still December, not even halfway through his season, so everything is still close enough outside of maybe Krish where anybody can win this thing. Any thoughts on how things are going, Eric?
I'm frustrated with I'm picking like the Blazers are playing, and I'm not happy about it.
At least you won a championship. You won the championship last year. It's a little bit of a championship hangover. It's to be understood. Like, that's very understandable. So let's jump into things here. We got game number 1. We got Indiana hosting Detroit, and Indiana is a 10-point favorite.
Real quick, I'm just going to check the line on this because Malcolm Brogdon was just ruled out, but it's still a 10-point line. Okay.
Yeah, I checked these about 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, Brogdon ruled out, McConnell out, Warren out for the Pacers. For the Pistons, Olynyk and Jeremy Grant are out.
And this is gross.
The starting lineups, if anyone cares, the Pacers are starting Wanamaker, LeVert, Holiday, Sabonis, and Turner. The Pistons are starting Killian Hayes, Cunningham, Diallo, Sadiq Bey, and Isaiah Stewart.
I don't like this spread at all, man. Here's the chat poll. There you guys go. There's the chat poll. Chris sent me his picks. Chris is going with the Pacers. What are you going with, Eric?
Since I don't know, I'm just going to take the points and say Pistons, I guess.
Slams your desk. When we teamed up last week, did we win?
Nope, we lost. Because it was the Warriors, and they won by 2 points, and the spread was 4.
Oh, yeah, that was stupid, dude. We
Yep.
got screwed on that.
Yep.
That's good old double down. Dude, I would have been tied for second had that hit. I think. I don't know. I think other people picked Warriors, so maybe I wouldn't have been tied for second, but that would have been nice to get. Let me pull up the stream on my phone so I can plug things into my software. We got Jackson going Detroit.
Reese went Pacers.
All right, is Reese not here as well?
No, he's here. He picked Pacers, yeah. Trevin went Pacers as well. The Pacers are Trevin's other team, so of course.
Yep. They almost have the same colorway as your team.
Man, it's the other part about that thing that sucked about the Warriors is wanted them to lose to an Eastern Conference team, and they win, but they don't cover the spread. It's like the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I agree with that. Is Zachariah here?
Zachary.
Where's Zachary? I still do not know what I want to do. And chat doesn't know what they want to do. 16 votes is 50-50. Get your votes in. John Sherman says, last time I saw picks against the spread, Tori was making fun of chat for always picking the favorites. Chat has improved a little bit, but still, I mean, record-wise, they are not looking too good. Chat got to step up. I looked at last year's stream, and like 100 games in, chat was like 20 games above 500. They were like 64 and 46 or something like that. So not at the same pace right now. What's up?
Zachary tweeted the tweet for the show starting.
I don't know. We'll figure it out. Chat, I'm going to end your poll unless it's 50-50. It's still 50-50. Next vote decides it. I still don't know what I'm going to do. 4 games, and it's already a mess. Get your votes in. We got 30 people in chat, 20 votes in the poll. We need one deciding vote. If you have not voted in the poll yet, you can be the deciding vote. Except mods, don't do it. Why am I talking into my phone? I'm pulling my phone up to my face like I'm talking into my phone like I'm on a call. We're already tripping. Still not a vote. There we go. Deciding vote for Pistons. Shout out to you if you just voted. You decided things here for chat. Finally, I am also going to go with the... I'll go... Dude, I don't know. Time to flip a coin, if we're being honest right now. No, I don't know where a coin is. I'm going to go Pistons. Screw it. Eric will team up again. Hopefully this time it'll go better. Zach, I don't know where Zach is. Hopefully Zach shows up. We'll have him do that. Brooklyn versus Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a 1.5 point favorite on the road.
Zach picked Pistons, by the way. He's here now. It's all good, man. Hope everything's okay.
Okay. Trevin Reese, Krish going Pacers, everybody else going Pistons. Game number 2. Philadelphia 1.5 point favorite. What are the injuries?
So this spread has changed because initially it was the Nets favored, so some money must have came in on the Sixers, but they are without Ben Simmons, of course. Furkan Korkmaz, Grant Riller, and Georges Niang all out. For the Nets, they are without Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Paul Millsap, Bruce Brown, Joe Harris, all out. And I have not seen an update on it, but it's looking like Bembry, Javon Carter, and James Johnson, and LaMarcus Aldridge all probably not going to play tonight as well. So.
Didn't the Sixers play last night?
I believe so.
Okay. Krish is going with the Sixers. Hyper Prime, I don't know what you mean by that, because I haven't done any in a while.
Yeah, 76ers lost to the Heat last night.
Jackson says you're going to have a great today.
That's good.
What's up, Sude? Long time no see.
The Pacers also played last night, so that's...
Yeah, okay, so it's two... There's a lot of games last night.
Yeah, there was.
Let me get on my phone here for... See what we got. Seems like mods don't know what they want either, because nobody has picked this game. This is like the time of the season with everything that's going on. It seems like every 5 minutes somebody is coming down with COVID or being put in health and safety protocols. It's kind of a mess
Bad right now, yeah. Nets are one of those teams that, like, pretty much everyone I listed is out because of that.
Yeah, it's KD versus Embiid and Maxey. Right? Like, that's basically what this is. I'm gonna go with Philadelphia. I think. I don't know, man. Yeah, I'll go Sixers. Screw it. Jackson, no excuses. All you have to do is pick one of two teams.
I'll take the Nets.
All right, Eric's going Nets. Katie going for 87. Sixers cover, says Zach, so he's going Sixers. Reese and Jackson. Jackson says Embiid masterclass. So, correct me if I'm wrong, Jackson, but you're going Sixers. And then Reese is going Nets, and then we're going to end chat poll. Chat is going 76ers, 65% of the vote. So Eric and Reese are all alone with the Nets. Everybody else going Sixers. Game number 3, Houston is hosting New York, and New York is a 5-point road favorite.
So, the Rockets are without Christian Wood was just ruled out. And, of course, John Wall, Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green, Daniel House all out as well. Eric Gordon, last I saw, was listed as probable. For the Knicks, they have Kevin Knox out for sure. And it looked like Barrett, Grimes, and Toppin were all possibly going to be scratched for protocols. But
Do you have the
that's
lineups?
not official. No, because it's not till later. So yeah. Yep. Unfortunately, as of right now, they are not. They don't have to make it official.
All right. Well, there's chat poll. I'm gonna go with the New York Knicks.
I'm also gonna go with the Knicks.
Krish went with the Knicks. Eric has a train in his backyard.
Man, you heard that before I even heard it.
Did I? Dang, man. I'm just ahead of my time, you know.
Jackson said.
Ahead of your time.
So Reese said they're all officially out.
Cool. All right, Jackson going Knicks. Zach's going Rockets. All right, Jackson and Knicks. We got Reese. Waiting on Reese, waiting on Trevin, waiting on chat. But chat, it looks like it's going to be the Knicks. Trevin's going Knicks. Reese is going Rockets. And chat.
Armani Brooks masterclass.
Armani Brooks masterclass. Chat, right now this is their double down, the Knicks. So Reese and Zach. Reese is going against the grain. It was Reese and you on an island last game, and now it's Reese and Zach. So final game, game number 4. There were supposed to be 5 games today, but one of them was canceled. That was a Bulls game. Wizards are on the road in Phoenix, and Phoenix is favored by 8.5.
So Phoenix has Saric, Kaminsky, Nader, Booker all out. The Wizards have Ruby, Thomas Bryant, and Dinwiddie out. Tyrese Maxey just got ruled out for the Sixers. Great.
Can I change that pick then?
I don't know.
Yeah, because injury. It was presumed that he was playing. I'm changing this to Brooklyn. All right. If anybody else that picked Phoenix or Philadelphia wants to change to Brooklyn, let me know.
Should we redo the chat poll?
Yeah, I'll redo the chat poll. Well, let's do this first, and then we'll go back. This I'm going with the Wizards. Although I'm not sure. Hold on, sorry,
okay.
erase. Let me be smart and do some research right now, Eric.
I'm taking the points with the Wizards, so.
Okay. Wizards. Ugh. I'm gonna go with the Suns, actually.
Okay.
Krish is going with the Wizards.
Trevin went Suns.
Reese went Wizards. Zach went Suns. Jackson said he's staying Sixers and he's going Suns. And then chat. We're going to end this poll. We got 65% Suns, which means their double down is going to be the Knicks. Eric, Reese, and Krish go Wizards. Everybody else goes Suns. All right, we'll go back to this, or not this game. We'll go back to this game. I'm changing my pick to the Nets. Tyrese Maxey is out, so I'll redo the chat poll for this. Okay.
I'm keeping my Nets pick.
All right, so Jackson and Eric. Well, I mean, I would assume you're keeping your Nets pick. Jackson said he's staying, so Krish has to stay. He's not here, so Zach and Trevin, let me know if you want to change, and I'll redo this chat poll. Also, for chat's double down, we could do a poll because there's only 4 options. There's only 4 games. If you want to do that, I'll go through the spread. But yeah, we're revoting for this because Tyrese Maxey has now been ruled out. Obviously, that kind of changes things here. So if you guys still want to go Sixers, that's completely fine. Just wanted to make sure to give you that option. Right now, we got 67% going Nets. All right, I assume... Thank you, Zach. Appreciate it. I assume Zach and Trevin are going to stay. And right now it's looking like Nets. Although it is pretty close. Nets have a slew of guys out. Aldridge, Harden, Kyrie, Javon Carter, James Johnson,
Bembry, Joe Harris, Millsap.
Bembry, Joe Harris, Millsap. So the Nets do have a lot of guys out. The Sixers are without Maxey. They're without Simmons, of course. They're without Niang. They're without Furkan freaking Korkmaz. This was already a tough game to pick. But right now we got 71% of the vote for Nets on 17 votes, so that's good enough. End poll. Chat is going to switch to the Nets.
Chad and Tori are the switchers.
Yep. So now it's a split vote. So that's cool. Anyway, Yeah, they don't have the freaking cork mods, man. It's sad. Double downs. I'm gonna actually let's go through the spread because I'll make a poll for you guys, chat. Because there's only 4 games. All right, you can double down on the Pistons as 10-point underdogs in Indiana. You can double down on the 76ers, 1.5-point favorites, the game you just voted on. You can double down on the Knicks, 5-point favorites against the Nets. The Nets. Yeah, sorry, I'm tripping. You can double down on Detroit, 10-point underdogs. The Nets, 1.5-point underdogs against Philadelphia. The Knicks as 5-point favorites against Houston, or the Suns as 8.5-point favorites against Washington. So I'll put that in the chat poll. Here we go to double downs. We got Krish doubling down on the Sixers. And then I'll put the chat poll in for you guys. I really wish mods could put in chat polls. It would be more fluid. They should allow mods to have that capability. That would be clutch. Chats, double down.
Jackson and Trevin are Knicks.
Okay, give me a sec. Pistons, Nets, Knicks, and Suns. Alright, there's the chat poll for the double down. You said who and who's
Jackson
Knicks?
and Trevin are Knicks.
Okay. I'm
gonna take the Nets.
Alright, Eric's going Nets. I will also take the Knicks. With my 4-12 double down record.
Sorry, everyone.
Sorry for what?
Nothing.
Zach and Reese we're waiting on. And then chat right now. 47% are Knicks, so they still want the Knicks. That poll was a complete waste of time.
Well, good, because I already marked it down.
Cool. Once Zach's and Reese's picks are in, I'm going to end that poll. Zach is double down.
Reese is Pacers.
All right, Reese is Pacers. Zach is Sixers.
Yep. That is everyone. Good luck, everyone.
Yeah, Zach, Sixers, and then we'll end the poll. Oh, wait, it's tied right now between Knicks and Suns.
Tie goes to the percentage.
Oh, there it is. Nah, you just got a vote that came in for the Knicks, so there we go. It's been decided. Chat is going with the New York Knicks. Although chat is down there with me at 4-12 on double down. So I think the Rockets I think the Rockets might be a good pick here, Zach and Reese, because me and chat have the Knicks and we suck on double down. So cool little colorway here. That's pleasing to the eyes. Anyway, that is picks against spread. So anyway, I mean, I guess just go to the trade machine, man. I mean, that's how we're gonna do things. I think on a lot of these streams from now on, we're just gonna go straight off picks against the spread, straight into the trade machine.
It's crazy that we went from no trades until 20 games to like 7 or 8 games later. Like,
yeah,
our whole stream's just gonna be trades, guys.
Yep. I mean, I think that's what they want, though. So
no, I know. Give the people what they want.
Yep. So we're just going to plug Portland in here. Let me make sure it's showing up well. Okay. Well, it show up well if I have 3 teams in there. Where do I add the 3rd team? Hello?
It's right above your mouse. Go up.
You're right. So will it still show up right? Yeah, it will still show up right if we have like 4 teams in here. I should move it like slightly this way. And then crop it slightly.
So
yeah, that's good. Anyway, let me delete these.
Oh, we're trading for Kevin Love and James Harden.
Oh no, shut up. And Kyrie. That'd be bad. All right, so Eric has a...
Okay.
I'll let you explain it.
So there's basically, in my mind, two paths right now. One is the Blazers try to save their season, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know what that would be, trading for any number of players, Simmons, Miles Turner, Sabonis, just like name all those players that are available, right? Jeremy Grant, like those kind of guys, right? Those would be, in my mind, like save the season type moves.
Except they wouldn't save the season like a Pascal or a Jaylen Brown.
That would be the thought process behind it. I guess Simmons would probably be the biggest one that could possibly help you multiple years. I mean, they'd all help you multiple years, but you know what I mean? Like, maybe have a higher ceiling in future years. But overall, that group of players, I think they're going to try to improve the roster through those routes. And if that doesn't happen, I could see them basically doing a mini reset around Dame. I still don't think there's any way they're trading Dame. I think Cronin has made it very clear that he's not going to trade Dame and that he's going to respect Dame wanting to be here and that he's not going to trade him or entertain that idea. So I think that's one of the reasons why you see Dame like talking to him all the time before games, and they seem to have a pretty good relationship. This might sound kind of crazy, and it might seem like, what are we doing because this doesn't help Dame now? But if the process isn't to get, like, if we don't easily attain another star to pair with Dame, we have to try and figure out another way to do it. Because we can't just go into this offseason being like, oh, well, maybe this summer we can trade CJ for Pascal Siakam. We didn't, last summer, but maybe eventually it'll happen. You know what I mean? So if that's not happening, go get multiple draft picks. So we have like 5 draft picks we could make in a trade, and we could get pretty much any player that came on the market because we have an asset-rich stockpile of picks and young players to go out and get guys like that. And then also you could do a mini reset with your cap and bring on like expiring contracts and things like that to where, so I figured out the numbers. If we simply traded CJ, it would be CJ, Norm, Rocco and Nurk don't really affect this because they're free agents, but if you're going to trade CJ and Norm, you might as well trade those two, right? As well. So those 4 guys, and then so I'll do this with or without Nance too. So Nance, without Nance, so if you trade Nance too, we're looking at Dame, Nas, Ant, Greg Brown, Anthony Simons cap hold, and Andrew Nicholson's 2.7-8 million dead money, which comes to just under 63 million. Okay. Between those, so we'd have 4 roster spots accounted for, 63 million. So the cap is supposed to be around 119 million next year. So that gives us roughly 56 million or so to play with, minus draft picks and minus roster cap holds, which would be roughly about 15 million in cap holds, just from the extra roster spots from 4 guys on the roster to 12.
Yeah. So who'd you say was going out? Because I'll just do this. So those are free agents, and then this is with Larry Nance. These numbers are.
This is without Nance, but I have it with him too. So
okay, I'll do it without Nance because I can show the payroll kind of.
Yeah.
Like this would be for 2022, 2023, like going into next offseason.
Yeah, so that has Anthony Simons' qualifying offer, which is his cap hold is actually 11.8 million,
Yeah.
which isn't bad still. That's pretty good. So what we could do is use the cap space and then re-sign him going over the cap to do so.
Mm-hmm.
So that would probably be the best strategy. So this is like the scenario, and people will say, well, Dave's not going to want to rebuild with like draft picks and stuff like that. Well, I mean, we still have Nas and Ant who are like part of our rotation right now, and we'd have everything we get back in the trades to make moves this summer, or if we get like a top 5 pick or a top 3 pick even, it could actually vault us into that category where you add a Big Caro or a Jabari Smith or a Chet Holmgren to that those 4 people we name, and now all of a sudden we're like, wait, can we really do this? And then also, people say like he's too old to do this around, but Dame's got to see a guy like Chris Paul, who everyone thought he was done. He goes to the Rockets. If he doesn't get hurt, he probably wins a title there. Yep. Then he goes to OKC, which is supposed to be rebuilding, and he takes that team to the playoffs and does well against a good Rockets team. And that team did not have a lot of talent on it. And then he goes to the Suns, and it's a pretty young team that's never made the playoffs with any of the players on their roster, and they make it to the finals and almost win the championship. So I feel like that's kind of what, like, if Dame is like, oh, I'm 31, I can't go through a rebuild, but he wants to stay in Portland, he might also be seeing that situation and being like, you know what? Like, why, if Chris Paul can do it at 36, why can't I do it at like 33 or 34 still?
Yeah.
He probably thinks he has several good years left, especially if he got the surgery and fixes things. So, I'm not saying we should rebuild solely around draft picks and young players, but getting as many of those as possible leads you to be able to make a trade for a player that we might not have been able to do had we kept CJ and Norm and all these guys.
Yeah. So, if you get a top 5 pick, that rookie's probably going to be making like $8 to $10 million. So obviously add that onto it. But that's the thing, you have cap space to trade for a player, sign multiple role players. Like, you have cap space to do things, and you have a lot of draft picks now, a lot of future draft picks if you cash CJ, Norm, Roko, Nurkic for picks and or young assets or whatever. You would then be able to potentially swing those for things, or you sign guys and then use those guys' contracts as well as all the future picks you have to trade for a star at the deadline next year. It just opens up a lot of avenues. Like, it's basically taking a step back to try to take 2 steps forward, if that makes sense.
And it might be hard to pull off. It would take. We'd have to make the right moves, because if we have a huge misstep, let's say we trade for a Miles Turner and it doesn't make us any better or something like that, like,
yeah,
it could end this, but it's not going anywhere anyway. So this is kind of like what Cronin's saying, to take risks, and this would be a risk. But if Dame signs the extension and he's on board with it, and you ask him to wait until like I mentioned in a previous stream, if you just ask him, say, okay, we're glad you're committed and you want to stay here, we're willing to pay you, but let's sign the deal on this date where you can then request a trade, and then we can just shut down any rumors for a whole season of you wanting out or during this rebuild. So you'll give us 1 full year to see how this rebuild is going for sure, and no one can say anything about you wanting out because you're untradeable for a year. And I think that would be the best thing to do, and that would show Dame's on board. Dame still wants to be here. He's willing to give it a shot, and also gets him paid as well and gets him what he wants if he wants that extension. Yep. So I think this is a case where so Alfred Community for 3 says Dame wants Ben Simmons. I don't see this happening or whatever. I think Dame's smart enough to know that they've tried to get Ben Simmons. Like, I don't think that's
Yep.
happening. I think he realizes that Morey's an idiot, and there's no way he's going to accept a trade with us unless we give up everything for Ben Simmons. And I just don't know if that's something we should do or that helps us really achieve what Dame wants, even if we get Ben Simmons. But we have to gut the whole team out to do that. Um, and in free agency, I know free agency has not been good for the Blazers, but there hasn't been a time in Dame's prime, um, outside of the first couple years of the rebuild after Aldridge, um, where we've had cap space since 2016. So maybe give Dame a chance instead of asking a Kelly Oubre to sign for the tax mid level. All of a sudden, we're able to average or offer these guys like $10-15 million a year, and then maybe we can get some of these free agents. And I'm not talking like big names, but this free agency class is very weak. So this is another reason why having cap space and draft picks could get you in the trade market. If a star becomes available, you can offer a rebuilding team a ton of picks and young assets, and you get what you want, but you have the cap space to bring them in, and you don't have to trade out a salary that they don't want or anything. So that's another avenue to improve this. And about 63 million roughly with those 4 players, and assuming we re-sign Ant, and then it's just under 72.6 million if you include Nance, if you want to keep him.
Yeah, which is I would look towards keeping him.
Yeah. And then for free agent wise, there's guys like Joe Ingles and Kyle Anderson, like wings like that are probably just as good, if not better, than some of our wings we have right now. And you could get them at a cheaper price. And, like if you get 1 or 2 of those guys, that reworks your wing situation around Dame, and you have some vets again. And then there's maybe a center like a Mitchell Robinson, who is an unrestricted free agent, even though he's coming off his rookie deal because of the way his contract was made. So maybe you can get a good athletic, high-flying center, a good defensive center to put out that roster as well. So here's how we go about doing it. The first step would obviously be we need a way to somewhat clear CJ's contract.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there aren't a lot of teams, I think, that would give up a ton to get CJ, I think, right now. But I think the Knicks are a team because they have 2 future firsts, and they could trade basically 3 firsts and get CJ without it really affecting their future that much.
Yeah. I will say the only problem with New York is if they keep losing, it puts a damper on that. But assuming they're able to kind of get back in the swing of things here.
But Tibbs is a win now guy. I don't think he's going to be happy with tanking or anything. And they have a roster where I CJ still makes sense for them for a couple of years. So the problem with them is their contracts they would be willing to trade out and give up the 3 firsts are Evan Fournier and Kemba Walker. And Evan Fournier's contract looks disgusting now.
So this is not pretty.
And the more you take on non-expiring contracts, the more it affects that number, that 56 million we talked about. So if we bring in Evan Fournier, he's making 18 million next year. Then all of a sudden we're down to like 38 million, and it gets lower and lower the more guys like that we have. The flip side of that is you do have Fournier under contract to try and trade or use as contract filler. So if you're going the trade route, him combined with all our draft picks, if we're going after someone anyway who only wanted draft picks, like we're doing in this situation, a team might be willing to take that on anyway. So it pretty much, in my mind, would be a trade centered around like a Kemba Walker and a Evan Fournier, who they would love to get rid of, and they would actually pay a little more with the 3 first. Even if you don't think CJ is worth 3 firsts, I think the fact that they are getting rid of those 2 guys who have been horrible for them this year helps them. So I was thinking there's the Charlotte pick, the Dallas pick, and their 2022 first.
What protection do you think would they put on this? I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter. We don't have to determine that now, but like,
here's what I was thinking. If this is the trade, it's just straight up like this.
mm-hmm.
I think we asked for it to be unprotected because the protections of the Charlotte and the Dallas trade are so I have it right here. The Dallas pick is top 10 protected for 3 years, and then it turns into a second. And the Charlotte pick is 18 this year protected, 1 through 18, and then 1 through 14 the next 3 years, and then also turns into a second. So those aren't like going to be lottery picks most likely. So I would say you have to get at least one really good pick, maybe top 3, top 5 protected.
I think top 5. I don't think they would go below that, but top 5 is reasonable.
And yep. So, and then you have a situation where, so they have to include like one smaller contract in this, I think, as well. Doesn't quite work out. Actually, it might. You can try it.
Are you sure? It should.
Yeah.
Because 25 mil matches 30.
Yeah.
So 25.8 mil would match 30.8 mil. So that would match.
Yeah. And then I had an idea to mix in the Chicago trade with this. So if Robert Covington is going to Chicago, and this would require the Knicks to take on Derek Jones, so then maybe the protections aren't quite as much on that first round pick. And then, so Chicago gets Rocco.
Knicks get Derek Jones.
And then the Knicks would have to send out a couple contracts. This is where they would have to do it. So we'd probably have to take on Knox and McBride in this just to make the contracts work.
Or do you think they go with... I feel like they'd keep McBride over like a Gibson maybe, but Gibson is also a Tibbs guy. Yeah, let's do McBride. All right.
Everyone's saying, or not everyone, but a couple people have mentioned there's a really bad echo when I talk.
I mean, if it's only a couple people and it's not in the majority say otherwise, then like
it's
what'd you say?
3, 4, 5, 6 people have mentioned it.
All right, give me a sec.
Zach says it's not terrible. Jackson says it is there a little bit. It's fine. No, I don't know. Yeah.
It sounds fine to me. I don't know what. Maybe I gotta rewind it more. I don't know. Let me sort this out then. I mean, there's a slight echo. It's not really bad. It's not even close to really bad, but I mean, I guess I'll move my mic further away, because I mean, he's coming through my headphones, so that's the mic picks that up slightly. Like that's. I mean, I could turn down his volume a bit. Let me mute my mic before I do this.
And then, so. And we'd also get our first back from Chicago in this as well.
Yeah. To Portland, there we go.
And then also Snell would have to be a part of this because we'd have to trade out 3 players. But if you add Snell, it's messed up to where it thinks you're adding too much money, but Snell's a minimum contract, so he can be traded with or without it working in the cap machine. So Snell would also go out, or whatever minimum contract they want to take if they want McLemore or Zeller or whoever, just as long as they take back whatever minimum contracts.
Yep. So this trade would work. Like Snell to New York. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but it won't work with Snell in there right now because it adds the 2.3 million. It doesn't
Yeah,
recognize.
instead of counting it as a minimum, which minimums don't count.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, this. So here's how it looks. I think Robert Covington to Chicago makes a ton of sense for Chicago. He kind of replaces Patrick Williams in that role. Obviously, Patrick Williams is out for a while, for the rest of the season, basically. And Robert Covington, I think, would be good defensively behind an Alex Caruso and Alonzo Ball. Would be an upgrade over Derek Jones Jr. Now, maybe you have to flip a second to Chicago, which I guess you do. But overall, like, I think they would trade our first back, especially if we're like, retooling.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they're trading their own burst or anything. They're trading our first back when they probably wouldn't get it this year. So I could see them definitely trading our lottery protected first through multiple years just back to us. And that opens up like all our future picks. It unlocks all our future picks because they're no longer backing up a protected first that we owe Chicago. So that's how it would look.
And so just basically the players we get back are kind of inconsequential. I mean, you could take a flyer on a Knox and a McBride and, play them. McBride's cheap. He's below the minimum amount next year. So
we'll replace like the Dennis Smith Jr. role next year, probably.
Yeah. So, and then, Knox, you probably either retrade him by the deadline or you let him go. Now, I would love to get rid of Walker and Fournier. So I would call a team like Minnesota and offer Fournier for Taurean Prince or something like that. Just see if you could get them to take on his contract for an expiring that we would then not have to worry about it next year.
So Fournier, we take back. Where's Prince at? There's Prince.
Probably have to include like a Jake Layman or something in it.
Yeah.
Get Layman back.
Why would we have to include Jake Layman?
I want to say there was something where they couldn't do that trade 13 to 17 without.
Yeah, 13 does not match 17, but they could include like a Noel and it would match.
Yeah, I just didn't know because Layman's not playing right now, so I thought maybe.
Layman back. You want Layman back?
No, just he's an expiring, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Honestly, to make this work, like if you just bunch this all together, right? I would send McBride to, because I feel like you got to sweeten the pot a little bit for Minnesota.
Yeah. So McBride.
And this could be like two separate trades, like subsequent trades where we trade for Fournier, right, and McBride in that 3-team deal we had, and then we go to Minnesota and offer McBride and Fournier and maybe a second for Layman and Prince. We're just gonna include it all in one trade, just to show you guys kind of what the moves would add up to.
And again, so we're not wanting Jake Layman, we're not wanting Taurean Prince, we're not wanting Kemba Walker on the Blazers. Those are not the point of this trade. The point is that we get 4 first-round picks or 3 and our first back. Opening up us to be able to trade all their future picks again.
Given how bad Fournier's contract is, I feel like you'd have to include our second. Now, if we're basically just kind of retooling, this is going to be a good second-round pick in 2022. So I would also send that to Minnesota. And
I mean, you don't have to. I mean, it was just an example with a team that has a contract that's somewhat close to that, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't
like Minnesota
have to be
being on like the brink of the playoffs, I feel like would maybe take a look at this. They need some more offensive firepower off their bench.
And Fournier is a guy who had some value. I mean, just as early as last summer. So it's not like there might not. I could see a team thinking that they could take a flyer on him and getting him, right?
Yeah, so this could be any number of teams where we trade them, we flip Fournier, McBride, and then our 2022 second for an expiring for a team that would want Fournier. So this, we have the Timberwolves up here with Prince because they make sense, but this could be any of like 5 or 6 teams probably across the league. You just have to find that team that is willing to do that. So
yeah,
this is what this adds up to.
So this is just with dealing basically McCollum and Roca, and you get four firsts basically, and a bunch of expirings, and we'll have to do something with Kemba this offseason. I mean, obviously, if another team wanted to take a flyer on Kemba, we would absolutely give them to him for free. But we would need. The good thing about it is that's an expiring contract next year that we'd have to
as a trade chip.
So we could use that to do anything, and it gets us way under the tax. So we're $3 million over the tax right now. This saves us almost $15 million. So we're almost $12 million under the tax.
Yeah, New York is still under the tax after this trade because they're only like $5 million above the cap. So that's fine on them. Yeah, and then like Chicago, I don't know what their tax situation is, but they could always just try and dump a Troy Brown Jr., no problem. But they're obviously trying to win right now, and then Minnesota, money-wise, pretty even.
And
so
Troy Brown Jr. is also a guy who, if, Chicago doesn't want him or wants to get under the tax, you could be like, okay, well, we'll take him on in this trade, and we'll take a flyer on him and Knox. And like I said, I'm not expecting either of those guys to necessarily be great, but you'd have, 40-some plus games to give them a look or whenever we make this trade.
Yeah. I mean, I think most likely you just let Prince, Layman, Knox walk end of the year. Save the flexibility, and then, you get your first back, and then you get 3 firsts on top of that. So we have 3 additional firsts. 2 this year, so we'd have 3 firsts this year, including ours, which would probably be good. That's the thing, is if our pick is in the lottery, we keep our pick regardless, and it would turn into a 2023 first-round pick that we owe to Chicago. So if we're hitting the retool button, it's probably easier to trade Rocco for our first back. And what that does is, like, instead of owing our 2023 first to Chicago because we keep our 2022, we'd still have our 2023 first. And would therefore then be able to trade it. We'd have more picks in play. We'd gain flexibility and not have to owe a future first to Chicago. So I think Chicago is just a perfect fit for Robert Covington. The problem is we can't take back Derek Jones Jr., so that is a caveat of this. Because we traded him to Chicago, we cannot reacquire him this season. So we'd have to find a third team because Derek Jones Jr. just makes a ton of sense as the piece that Chicago would trade out to match Robert Covington.
Yep. And so people would be like, why would you do this instead of like trade for a star? Well, I mean, if you're being super creative and it was a star you wanted to get, but that team did not want CJ, then you could flip like Walker, Prince, and Knox and Layman in this trade, and all our picks to go after whoever we wanted, and offer some team 4 first-round picks, basically, and expiring contracts. So
yeah, but that would most likely be in the offseason because we can't like aggregate these salaries.
No, I'm saying like right now, before the trade's even finished.
Oh, just
don't even get any of these guys. Like add another team to this and keep adding. So, I mean, yes, it's very rare that'll happen, and that's not something that like realistically probably would happen, but this is something that like Tori and I constantly think about, is like, okay, well, this isn't even good enough, let's bring another team in and do this, and bring another team in and do this, and you can only do that if it's at the time of the trade. So
the idea is, right, so you get all these assets. We haven't even talked about a Nurkic or a Norm trade, right? So we still have Nurkic. We still have Dame, Norm, Nas, Nance, Nurkic, which is the starting lineup we've been rolling out there. I'm still logged into Uber Eats for some reason, so let me get this to chill, and then let me log out. I don't know why I was logged in. But you still have the starting lineup we've been rolling out there the past few games. You still have Simons off the bench. You know what I mean? So, but you have 4 additional firsts. But here's the thing. If we're going the retool route, right, like if we're... this would be plausible the worse we are around the trade deadline, right? If we're like 12 to 15 games under 500 around the trade deadline, then this is a very plausible route. And here's the thing is if we're struggling that bad and then we're like, seventh worst team or whatever, and then we get a little lottery luck and that's a top 3 pick, we can probably trade that straight up for a star. Maybe throw in another first. But like if there's a team that like a star wants out and they're trying to rebuild, you can easily flip like our pick being really good into something, right? And you have cap space to absorb salary, so if a team's trying to, save some salary, you just have a lot of options, and you have easier assets to move. Draft picks are a lot easier to move than like a CJ McCollum, because CJ McCollum only fits for a certain number of teams, only fits in a certain number of situations. Certain teams have to want him, and even situations he does fit in, teams might not value him enough, a la Daryl Morey in Philadelphia. So he's hard to move, but if you can maximize his value in terms of first round picks, you can more easily turn those first round picks into something. And by just accepting the struggle of this year, that makes our first round pick better this year. That increases the value of that asset. So you'd more easily be able to flip it into something than if have the 14th pick or the 15th pick or whatever. So that's the thing is like we get our first back. Even if we make the playoffs, we get our first back. That's like 15th, 16th overall pick, whatever, that we can trade. Robert Covington could leave for nothing in free agency. Mm-hmm. So that's the problem.
Yeah.
So that's why this route could make a lot of sense.
So Zach asked if we're bad enough and it's almost certain our pick is going to be in the lottery, couldn't we get Chicago to include something more than just our pick for Rocco? Yeah, it might be a case where maybe you can get them to send the second round pick to Minnesota or whatever instead of us. But the thing is, it's protected for like 5 or 6 years for lottery. So it's not just this year you have to worry about. They're basically giving up a chance to get our first round pick any number of years down the road. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could maybe phrase it that way with them and see if they're willing to do it.
But like you have to remember, they're trading out Derek Jones Jr., who has played some minutes for them.
And Covington doesn't have a lot. There's not a lot of teams probably that are going to give up a first, let alone, like that really want him bad or would enter this conversation right here.
And he's expired. Yeah. So they are taking a little bit of a risk. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't even ask. Like I would be ecstatic if we could just get our 2022 first back for him.
So right now, let's say this trade was in process. All 4 teams have agreed, right?
Yep.
And you're sitting there just like, okay, guys, can you wait just a minute, right? Mm-hmm. You have basically 3 additional first-round picks, and you have the ability to trade. Then we could trade, I think, 4 unprotected of our own picks if we get our pick back, right?
Yeah.
Who would you go after if you had like an ideal scenario, like one player to fit our roster? Keeping in mind who we had left. Yeah. What would you think?
Probably Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
Pascal Siakam. Those kind of 2 guys.
See, that's tough for the Celtics because I don't necessarily see them doing it like this.
Yeah.
I mean, they could, I guess, but might be weird. But Toronto would be interesting. I could see them liking expirings and 4 or 5 first-round picks for Siakam. That could get interesting.
I don't know if I'd want to.
I don't know if I'd want to at that rate either.
And I wouldn't trade our pick, like unprotected or anything.
Yeah. If
we're that bad. So that's why it's more like wait until the offseason, see what becomes available. Obviously, you don't want to miss the boat on something, but like this route makes. I feel like the only way we even entertain this route is if we're like already 12 games below 500 anyway, so we'd probably just ride it out.
I'm thinking about like not necessarily for this year. So skip like we've already skipped the making the playoffs this year. What player would make a lot of sense to where you still maybe could have your draft pick, but you give up a ton of first to go get him?
I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. That's tough. Part of me wanted to say Zion, but like that, Portland and Zion is just, it's like stay away from that. But we could offer, Torian Prince and like 5, 6, 7 first-round picks for Zion. But
Yeah, see, like that's the only way that would even be like possible. It's not gonna be possible with CJ Rocco. You know what I mean? Like, Zion. That's funny.
If Thomas Aransky says cat, so for the people mentioning Patrick Williams, I don't think the Bulls would give up Patrick Williams for Covington. I mean,
they wouldn't. Absolutely not.
So even though he's out for the year, I don't think they would do that. Jason Tatum's probably untouchable. So, cat, I don't know. If Minnesota's close to being in the play-in or playoffs, which they are, I don't see them blowing it up this year. I mean, maybe if they lose the play-in game and Cat's super frustrated, maybe in the offseason that's someone you look at to get. But that, I don't think that's the right fit for this current scenario right now.
Yeah. So, all right, we got this trade, right?
Okay.
What else? Like Nurkic / Norm. What are we looking at?
So this is the really tough part for me. I tried to find a good trade for Nurk, and basically the only ones I could come up with were teams that would just want an expiring contract, or teams that don't really have anything to give up for him. So I'm almost to the point where you might just eat his contract and let him walk at the end of the year,
or try and re-sign him for a reasonable
amount. You could re-sign him for a reasonable amount because he's still young enough to fit with a rebuild.
Yeah. But like, I mean, the whole idea is like, if we're trying to win, if we're trying to retool for a year and then be competitive again next year, like, it still makes sense to bring him back.
Joey, can you please go watch before we started this? We explained why that was, and why we're doing this. So it doesn't really help the conversation. But anyways, lots of people mentioned the Hornets as a team that needs a center. I don't think Nurk fits in with like an up-tempo team that wants to fast break and do all that stuff. I mean, he'd be okay, but I just don't think they need a guy like Nurk. They need more of a high-flying, rim-running center and
Rashawn Holmes type of guy. Maybe.
Yeah, just don't think that makes sense for them.
Yeah, I agree. So, all right, so keep Nurkic, all right, and then try and re-sign him in the offseason, I think would be the play there. What about Norm?
So Norm, first of all, can't be traded until January 15th, but that would probably line up with the timing of these moves anyway. So, but real quick about the Nurk thing. This is why Tori and I always say he has more value to us than in a trade, because you're not going to get like a first and young players for him, things like that. So
let me respond to this trade idea. Okay, Nurk to Orlando for Mo Bamba. Why in the world would the 5-21 Orlando Magic trade a young center with 2 years left on his contract? What'd you say? I mean, he has team option, right? I don't know if they're counting his qualifying offer. I don't know, but regardless, a rebuilding team is not going to trade a young center who's just as good as Nurkic for Nurkic on an expiring when he's just going to leave at the end of the year. They're giving up Mo Bamba for nothing. For what? Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why in the world would Orlando at 5-21 in rebuild mode give up Mo Bamba for an expiring use of Nurkic?
Yeah. I mean, maybe if he threw in a first, but now we're talking. I mean, I guess you're paying a team to take Nurk's contract. Like, that doesn't make sense to me either. Like I said, I think it might make more sense to just save all our first round picks and that we just got, and then
And here's the thing. This is why this is your number one stop for trade talk, because the other YouTube channel tossed out that as if it was a realistic possibility, which is just ridiculous. No rebuilding team is going to trade a young center for an older center on an expiring contract.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't make sense. It's completely against the direction they're going. Right? If this was a team like, oh, we're on the brink of contention, just an upgrade anywhere, I feel like takes us to the point of contention, and they think Yusuf Nurkic is a little better than Mo Bamba, then sure. Mm-hmm. But not a rebuilding team. That's the thing. Team direction and team situation matter so much in trades. That's why you got to consider the other team in regards to trades. I'm sure you can trade Nurkic from Mo Bamba on 2K, but this isn't 2K. Right? Like, 2K is an absolute joke when it comes to anything like that. So, you got to consider team situation and team direction in regards to trades. You got to consider what other teams would want. And Orlando wouldn't want Nurkic for Bamba.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was messing with the idea of, like, the Nets. Brook Lopez just had surgery on his back. The Bucks.
You're living in like 2015.
Yeah, the Bucks. Brook Lopez just had. Well, they were the next team as I mentioned. So, the Bucks just have Brook Lopez with back surgery. Who knows if this is going to be a washed year for him or not? And they might be looking to, add a center at some point, but they don't really have. I mean, what are we going to do? Brook Lopez, who has a year left on his contract and second round picks for Nurk, because they don't really have a lot of firsts to trade either. So, and I don't think they give up a first in that trade anyway. Once again, I think we're just better off taking our chances with Nurk or eating his salary and letting him walk, or trying to re-sign him for cheaper in the offseason.
Well, what about DiVincenzo and Pat Connaughton for Nurkic?
Yeah, maybe, but I don't see them giving up DiVincenzo.
It depends on how bad they want a center. I think Milwaukee is going to be like...
Did he end up signing it? I can't remember if he signed an extension or not. I don't know if it's on there, but...
I don't...
It doesn't show it.
So. But here, honestly...
I thought he did for some reason.
As far as Milwaukee goes, they are the dark horse team for Miles Turner.
Mm-hmm.
Because you look at, you throw Lopez in with DiVincenzo or Grayson Allen, who's played pretty well, still pretty young, and then you toss in a pick.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's hard for them to trade picks, so I don't know if they can trade. Yeah,
their
pick situation is just iffy. But, if you talk, DiVincenzo, Grayson Allen, and, Brook Lopez... DiVincenzo's still young. Grayson Allen's still young. Or Grayson Allen's 26. I thought he was a little younger. Maybe you can sort something out around that. And maybe
Grayson has a poison pill, I think.
Does he?
Yeah.
I don't think it's big enough.
Yeah,
it's not big enough to really completely be a trade killer. So, and then maybe you throw in a Nwora, who's still 23. Still a young guy. I feel like Milwaukee's going to be a team that pushes hard for a Miles Turner type or a number of other centers. So Nurkic might make some sense for them, but there's going to be other centers on the trade market. That's the thing. And if they can find a center that they like better that they can trade for, you completely eliminate them for possibilities for Yusuf Nurkic.
Yeah.
So.
And then I was thinking maybe the Nets are kind of thin up at center. I've heard rumors that they don't want to pay Gafford in the offseason, so maybe you find a way to make that work, but they don't have mid-range contracts.
The Nets don't have Gafford. What are you talking about?
I mean, not Gafford, Claxton. Sorry.
I mixed them up too.
Yeah.
I was like, wait.
So maybe there's a way to get some smaller contracts, but they're going to have a really, really hard time matching Nurk's salary. Unless you're talking about taking on a Joe Harris or something, but I know they have.
You know what sucks? They have an $11.4 million trade player exception. It's barely too small to fit Nurkic's $12 million.
Yeah, well, that might be something for a Nance if we do entertain him, because he would fit in well with that team.
Yeah, but what picks do they? I ain't trading Nance unless I get a first back.
Yeah.
And they don't have young guys. I guess maybe take a flyer on a Cam Thomas.
You get Claxton and Cam Thomas.
I don't think they trade Cam Thomas. I don't know. I don't think they give up Cam Thomas for just a Larry Nance Jr.
Yeah.
So I think honestly it comes down to you keep Nurk and you keep Nance.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like you shop them and see what you can get.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for sure. And if
did you have
if there's a norm trade or something for someone, I don't know an example of this, but someone who we need both of their salaries to, then you just pull the trigger on it, or you get rid of one of Nurkic or Nance in that situation. But so an idea I have for Norm. Now he can't be traded till January 15th. And so we look back at the trade deadline last year, right? He was traded for Rodney Hood, which is basically an expiring contract, and Gary Trent Jr. But I think Norm has a little more trade value right now because he is now, whatever team trades for him is going to have him for sure under contract for 4.5 years on a very reasonable contract.
Yep.
So I think a team can safely trade for him knowing that he is going to be one of their core pieces if they want him to be, and they're not giving up a bunch of players or picks for a 1-year rental or anything like that. So that was the problem last offseason. You know, we went right up until the minute he signed with us where we celebrated, not even knowing if we were going to get anything for Gary Trent Jr. Because Norm could have left for nothing. So my idea, you're not going to like this, but is to trade him to the Atlanta Hawks.
Okay.
I think he would be a decent backcourt duo with Trae Young. I think McMillan would like him. And so my idea is DeLon.
Oh God, I already know where this is going.
DeLon Wright's expiring.
Yeah.
Cam Reddish.
Cam freaking Reddish.
And a first-round pick.
I am not as high on Cam Reddish. Which first?
No, I'm not. Just like probably a lottery-protected 2022 or whatever. Yeah.
All right.
Not the OKC one, because that's lottery protected and turns into second, so we don't want that because it's not going to convey. So here's what this does. One, it gives us just ignore. They're wrong about Norm.
Yeah, this works. Yep.
So this gives us an expiring contract who actually we can maybe flip for a second, or someone else like DeLon Wright might have some trade value. Like a number of the other players we've brought in. Cam Reddish, he's under contract for it's like $5.4 million or something like that off the top of my head next year. So we get a cheap flyer on a young wing that could be a defensive specialist.
Yeah, he's not Atlanta's best defender though, Antonio. He's not Atlanta's best defender.
Man, not with that. Not if you include DeAndre Hunter and Capella. And Okongwu is now going to play again. I would love to get Okongwu out of this deal because that would maybe give us that young center for the future. Reese and some other people didn't think they would trade Okongwu, but like if
Okongwu instead of the first.
If we could get Okongwu and like an expiring like DeLon Wright or Okongwu and Lou Williams or something, like just take on whatever they want to give. I would absolutely take him, and that could be. I know he's been injured a lot, hasn't had a chance, but that could be our defensive specialist center that we replace Nurkic with if we trade him or let Nurk walk at the end of the year. And also, same sort of situation, cheap. Maybe even you consider throwing in a pick back to them in that situation. But yeah, so I would do something like that, where you get an expiring, a good young player, maybe add another pick, and then so then instead of 4, now we have 5 additional or we're back to 4 additional firsts and all of our picks able to be traded in the offseason. We have DeLon Wright coming off the books. We also get Norm off our books. So we're now down to that situation where, other than Kemba Walker and Cam Reddish, that adds up to about 14 million, I believe. So we're still looking at a situation where we could have as much as about 42 million in cap space minus our draft picks.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this is probably the ideal Norm trade. Like I like a Kongwu, man. And That's the thing is, if you can get contributors on cheap contracts, it allows you to like spend a bunch of money elsewhere on one guy. Or, who knows what that looks like, but it allows you the flexibility to bring in a bunch of salary in a trade without trading anything out in the offseason. Like, that's the thing is, in this situation, like, Kongwu makes it easier to trade
Reddish in that trade. I think it would have to be like Lou Williams, who's not even playing,
I mean, I think this matches anyway if you do DeLon Wright and a Kongwu for Norm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you could get a Kongwu in the first, if you could do this,
I don't think you get a first.
Then you're loving life. I mean, that's insane, but I don't think you're getting a first. But like, you get a second back or even anything on top of this, I like it. I would probably do this if we're going this route like this. I'd probably do this anyway. Mm-hmm. Now, if we're trying to keep Nurkic and Nance, does a Kongwu fit in? Like, Nance backup 4 still? Well, Nance would be starting, so, I mean, a Kongwu would be the backup big. It's just, I don't know how it would sort itself out in terms of the front court, but, like, you'd have a Kongwu as a cheap rotation player, for sure, next season. You'd have Little as a cheap rotation player, for sure, next season. You'd have our draft pick, if we kept it, as a cheap rotation player, for sure, next season. You'd have Dame. You'd have
the Knicks and the Hornets potential draft picks as cheap contracts too.
Yeah, so you're filling up your rotation. You got some cheap contract guys. Anthony Simons is going to get paid, but you can wait to pay him and you can make other moves. His cap hold is less than how much he'll get paid, so you wait on that. He won't be cheap, but I mean, when you're trading out CJ, like Anthony Simons, I think next season in this scenario would be like a top 5-6 man of the year candidate. And obviously is still very young, so that would kind of be the result of it, right? Is there anything else that you had to it?
No, that was basically it. There were some other Norm ideas. If we don't include Minnesota in that first trade, I think Prince and draft picks and maybe a young player or something would make sense.
What about Cleveland for Norm?
Yeah, I mean, they'd pretty much have to move on from Sexton, but I don't know. Then we're basically talking Norm and Nurk for Kevin Love.
And then Nurk comes off the bench?
I guess, or
because they can't take Larry Nance.
Flip him somewhere else or something. Yeah.
I mean, or you got Norm. I mean, maybe they'd be right. I don't want Markkanen's contract, but he's still young. Like,
I mean, everything's been working for them, other than Sexton. I mean, but him getting hurt's worked for them too. So
yeah,
I don't really see them. I don't know.
I feel like they'd maybe do like Sexton. Well, how much are they under the cap? Are they under the cap at all? No, they're not. Okay. Like Sexton and Ed Davis. Bring back Ed Davis. Bring back Layman and Ed Davis. And that doesn't match because they're into the tax. So it'd be hard to work it out. Like, I think maybe they'd give up Osman and a first for Norm. But it's finding the other salary that they're willing to trade on top of that to make that work. That would be tough.
Yeah.
But like Norm next to Garland would be interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Like you said, he's a good fit next to Trae Young. I think he'd be a good fit next to Garland too.
Well, a lot of people mentioned that New York would be a good spot if CJ wasn't the trade target for him for Norm. But I almost feel like their problem is they need more of an actual ball handler, not another good two guard.
Yeah. Is Danny Green expiring? Is he a
Chris is
team?
Chris is so mad.
Of course he is. Norm,
No,
I can see
he just signed a
Philadelphia.
contract.
Okay, but it's 2 years. I just didn't know if the second year was guaranteed or not.
Well, they're kind of the same way, but I guess Maxey and Norm would be a good combo. But I don't know.
I could see them being like not trading Ben Simmons all year, and then the trade that happens between us is like Danny Green, a smaller contract, and a first for Norm.
Okay, so if you want to get really crazy, we know they want draft picks, but they don't really want draft picks. Like, they don't want expirings in draft picks, because you could say, like, Nurk and Norm and, like, 5 first-round picks, right, for Ben Simmons. And then, so that would be a way to get Ben Simmons still without, if they didn't want CJ or whatever. But if you had I can't think of a player right now, but so Norm makes 15 something, Ben Simmons makes 33. So a player somewhere in the like 10 to 12 million to $18 million range that they really liked in addition to Norm, and then you traded
Nance Jr.
Yeah, I mean, Nance would be a good fit for them. I don't know if that's quite enough. I think that's just...
I can do the math. 26.2
but actually
times 1.25 is 32.75.
If we worked it into that other trade...
Yeah, I mean, I like to try and split things up, because then it's like...
right.
I don't like adding too much onto one trade, because then it's, dependent on more variables.
So, yeah, they'd have to take, like, Backlemore or, like, one of our...
Yeah, it would be something essentially like, I don't know, let's throw in Charles Bassey. Like something like this would ignore the failed. Like this would work. Right, obviously we'd throw in a bunch of firsts. Right? Like we would essentially at this point have 5-6 firsts to trade on.
Yeah,
and if they were willing to do that, you still get Norm and you get Larry Nance Jr. Like, and then maybe you flip those first for like a star caliber player, and you get your top 25 guy or whatever. Like that would be a good move. I wouldn't want to do that if I was Portland though.
But so let's play this out though.
Okay.
We have, okay, so how many picks do you think? 5? 4 or 5 probably in this?
I mean, with Morey, who knows?
Yeah. So let's just say it costs 5 picks. Let's just do it all the way out, right?
Yeah.
All right, so here's what you do. You give them the Knicks pick, you give them the Hornets pick, you give them the Dallas pick. So there's 3 of your 5, right?
Yep.
You give them a 2023 and a 2025 Portland first, right?
Yep.
There's 5 firsts. We take this season, get a high draft pick. We keep our high draft pick this season. We roll into next season with probably a top 10 pick. Hopefully we get lucky and get a top 3 pick. And you're maybe talking about Dame, Ben Simmons, Bankaro, and you could re-sign Nurk or whoever, but and Ant Simons and Nas. See, this is what we're talking about when we started this whole thing, right? You're saying you guys are crazy. Dame's not going to want to rebuild around draft picks. This is stupid, right? But we just gave you a not realistic, but like a somewhat like logical, thought out way of getting to where we could be a championship caliber team next year. Like that's really nice, that's really, really nice. And yeah, you make a couple moves where you have you hit on your mid-level exception, or you make a good trade with Kemba Walker's contract or something like that. But like just something like that, it might still be not enough for Simmons, but take like whatever other star becomes available like at some point this season or this offseason. Like that's what you do, and then you add. All of a sudden, you have a way better team around Dame with a much higher ceiling.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, any one move is not realistic. But if you give yourself enough options, it's realistic that one of those moves will become available. Does that make sense? Like, if you go to a bar and there's, and you don't have much game, and there's only 2 single females in that bar, and you go up to them, like, any female you go up to, if you don't have a lot of game, you're probably going to get rejected, right? So if there's only 2 females, you probably come out with nothing. You're probably screwed. You're going home alone, whatever. If there's 20 single females in the bar, you're not any one of them is likely to, most of them are likely to reject you, but there's enough options that you keep trying, you keep searching for something, you're likely to find one. You're likely to find something. So that's my analogy for trades and for putting this team in a position where more moves become available to them, right? So that's the thing is, as a GM, you need to be creative. You need to try and figure out how many different options you have, right? Because not any one option is realistic, but this is what GMs should be doing. They should be going down this route like, okay, what if we did this? What would be our options? This would be a potential option if we were able to get a bunch of first-round picks, right? But then, something else is an option. You got to try and find a bunch of options that you kind of like and then work things to try and go down one of those paths. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So when you look at things in isolation, they're unrealistic. But if you look at things in totality and you have a bunch of options, then it's more feasible.
And this is exactly what, like Cronin's talking about, where I need to be creative. Like, this is the kind of things that Olshey would have never, gone down to try and do. So, that I'm hoping Cronin's different. Apparently he has mastered the salary cap and knows how to do this kind of stuff. One thing we didn't mention too is in that initial New York trade, that $13 million becomes a trade exception that we have a year to use too. So we have almost $14.8 million that we could use to bring on a player anytime between now and almost to the trade deadline next year. So this gives you a lot of options. And then we also have Kemba Walker's expiring contract next year that we could trade. We might have still a little bit of cap space over the summer, or if not, we'd have our full mid-level exception for sure, which is going to be around $10 million. So we could offer, like I said, maybe a Kyle Anderson or someone like that, just get a good wing defender or something like that in the free agent market. And I that's why I like it. And who knows if they give up Ben Simmons for that package? That's not what we're saying, but we'd have the option to do that if they did realize that they need to do something for this year.
Yeah. Yep. So Alvaro asked me, do you think the Cavs would even think about trading a Kongwu for Norm? I think he means the Hawks, but Hawks. I don't know. There's only one way to find out though if you're the GM of the team. Right? And that's the thing is you lay out options on the table where it's like, okay, this might make sense for the other team. They might do this. You have to try and think of the other team, right? You can't just say, oh, let's give ourselves the option of trading, Nurkic and Rocco for LeBron James, right? That obviously has no chance of happening. But anything with even a small chance of happening because it, you can logically see it making some sense for both sides. You have to lay that option out on the table and do your due diligence of trying to figure out, okay, what is this other team interested in? And a lot of GMs have people that work under them that talk with other front offices and talk around the league to try to gauge what other front offices are looking for. So it's not just a one-man operation. It's actually a whole team of people, and it becomes a very complicated, spider webs of things. It's not as simple as just throwing a name into the trade finder in 2K and, we got a trade offer from every team, and, we could get... we could get this absolute fleecing of another team by just hitting the A button or the X button. I don't know what you guys play. It's not that simple. It's a very complicated process. It takes months to play out. That's why I said that Blazer fans need to be patient, because I guarantee you the Blazers are looking at a lot of options, but I highly doubt they're ready to pull the trigger on anything in the next 2 to 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. So... Yeah, and we'll keep talking about potential options. That's the thing. We got a lot of time to talk about potential options. We would have never explored anything like this in previous seasons, but with how bad things are getting,
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, when we were 10-8,
yeah.
But I mean, we lost 10 of 11, so that kind of changes things, and things are, going downhill as we speak. I don't know if we won the game last night, maybe we wouldn't be talking about this, but I mean, things just look very, very bad. So this is just kind of a look at what it might look like, and that's the thing, is you could substitute other teams into this deal with other pieces that make some sense. So it's not necessarily doesn't necessarily mean CJ has to go to the Knicks, or we have to try and flip Fournier to the Timberwolves that we get back from the Knicks and CJ to get an expiring, because I don't want Fournier's contract, right? That could be a different team than the Timberwolves that gives us an expiring for Fournier. Just depends on which team wants Fournier or is willing to take him on. Obviously, to get our first round pick back, Rocco would have to go to the Bulls, but I think that makes a lot of sense. That is my favorite trade idea so far this year, is Rocco to the Bulls. We get our first back. They trade Derrick Jones Jr. to a third team. So obviously that's dependent because Chicago owns our first, but everything else you can replace it. You can replace the Knicks with someone else. You can replace the Timberwolves with something else. So we're just showing you what it could look like with these two teams as an example, and just kind of talking you through the thought process and the logic of it. But this, we could have a very similarly structured trade with just different teams and different expiring contracts in this deal, and still get back multiple firsts, and then try and make a play like a Norm and Larry and 5 first-round picks for Simmons or what may have you.
Mm-hmm. So, and the other thing with Rocco is, say there was another team, I don't know, Philadelphia or Boston or whoever was willing to give us a lottery protected first or something for him. Mm-hmm. Well, we could turn around and maybe ask Boston if they trade that first for ours back. Yeah. And that, because Boston's looking at it if we're trading off players. Or you mean
Chicago?
Or Chicago, sorry. Yeah, Chicago's looking at it if they're trading off players and going rebuild, maybe they're scared we're going to trade Dame and they never see that, but Boston might barely make the playoffs this year, and it might be the 17th or 18th pick or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so that looks like a better scenario for them, where they actually get the pick instead of wondering, will they ever have it convey it? Will it turn into a second eventually because we're going to suck for the next 5 years or whatever? You could also call them and just either get our pick back or change the protections on it or whatever. So then that helps you back to the scenario we were talking about, where we can trade all our future firsts again, even if we don't trade Rocco to the Bulls.
Yeah, so it could be as simple as... I'll just outline it for you guys. This to Chicago, Portland's first back to Portland. Celtics have a trade exception big enough, automatically applied, cool. So this trade would work. Mm-hmm. They have a trade exception big enough to take Robert Covington. Who knows if they want to take on that salary, but you do something like this where maybe the Bulls would rather have Chicago's first and be willing to give ours back. Or the Bulls would rather have the Celtics first and be willing to give ours back. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, that could be a workaround if the Bulls don't really care for Covington, where we can still trade out Robert Covington and get our first round pick back, but we just find a team that wants Robert Covington, which might be the Celtics. So, and then in this situation, Chicago doesn't have to trade out Derrick Jones Jr. So if they still want to keep Derrick Jones Jr., if they don't want Robert Covington, they don't want to give up a first to swap Derrick Jones Jr. for Robert Covington, I mean, they still keep Derrick Jones Jr. in this trade. So that's the situation, basically. I don't know. But lots of moving parts, lots of options. So hopefully we explained that well. Anything else on this concept?
Thank you for watching. It's been fun process. This is my thing, so when people see that we don't like making moves and stuff like that, or we were talking about earlier in the season, we're not going to talk about trades. Those were situations where, we weren't ready to do it because we didn't think the team was necessarily going to do it. But now that Olshey's gone and it seems like we have to make a move and we suck, so I could definitely see this playing out.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's more fun to talk about trades now.
And we'll talk about other different routes, lay the options on the table. I mean, if Joe Cronin wants some ideas, he should watch us over the next couple of months. But, he has a whole team probably doing the same exact stuff we're doing. So that's, there's guys in the front office that are designed to kind of explore what different possibilities may be with other front offices. So, trade talk is kind of one of our strong suits. Because me and Eric are CBA nerds and really pay attention to the rest of the league. So, it's not a situation where we think Orlando's going to trade a Mo Bamba for a expiring contract, a veteran. Like, Mo Bamba's actually been pretty good for them this year. So, that's the thing, is you got to think about other teams when making trades. A lot of people will come in this chat and just toss out a trade idea that doesn't seem to have the other team in mind, like I saw an idea on Twitter. It was like Nurkic and what was it? It was like Nurkic and Nance to Philadelphia for Simmons, and it's like why would Philadelphia with Joel Embiid want Yusuf Nurkic on an expiring contract, and they also have Andre Drummond, so why would they want a third center in that mix? And then Larry Nance Jr., who's like a power forward center, right? Like that, they would much rather have CJ, and they still don't want CJ bad enough, so they're definitely not going to want a Nurkic and a Nance, pretty logical. So, we try and think about other teams and try and make it as logical and realistic as possible. And we'll continue to do that. Anything else you got to say, Eric?
No, we'll see everyone tomorrow night after the game against the Charlotte Hornets, and I hope everyone has a good day and a half until then.
Yep, I agree with that. We'll see you tomorrow night after the loss to the Charlotte Hornets. Until then, have a good rest of your Thursday. As always, peace out. Go Blazers.